Welcome to another edition of the Dental Today podcast. Thank you for stopping by. This is brought to you by Lab Media TV. My name is Hezekiah Morales, and here we go. Remember to follow us on social media at Lab Media TV. Welcome to another edition of the Dental Today podcast. We are joined today by Mr. Phil Nebeker out of Linden, Utah, a gentleman who from the beginning of his story has always been artsy, wasn't a dental technician professional in the past, before his artistic life in the dental industry. He's going to share with us today. We're privileged to have him on the show. Phil, welcome to the Dental Today podcast. Awesome having you on here. Exciting to have somebody that I've been watching your material on Instagram, seeing all these awesome posts, and now being able to have you on the podcast. Amazing, really is awesome to have you here. And I'd like to know where you started. You did share with me you've been artsy from the beginning. Tell me a little bit about your history.
Yeah, my history was I was a terrible student. I was doodling, and my teachers realized I was the kid that was always getting the notes that I could do better. And into my later teenage years, I didn't know what I was going to do. I really wanted to be a dentist, to be honest. I had a friend that was a dentist, and the small town, Wyoming, where I grew up, everybody was kind of trying to find something to do. And I never intended on being a full-time artist or a dental technician or anything. It just kind of happened. I started doing some sculpting, 17, 18 years old. And it kind of developed into the point where in my early 20s, I was doing a lot of sculptures for people. I ended up doing one for the Navy. And I thought that was going to be my career. And when I got married, my wife put up with it for a while. And then, it's just one of those things where it's really hard to count on a paycheck every 2 weeks with being an artist. And especially when kids started coming along. So I started thinking about doing something that was a little bit more full-time. My wife was very influential in helping me make that decision to get a full-time job because she was kind of tired of the art thing. So started, actually, there's a program here in Provo, Utah for dental technology. And I started into that program. I had every intention of finishing, but I'm a bad student again. And so rather than halfway through the waxing program, rather than waxing teeth, I was waxing birds and dragons. I think I did a horse or something. And so I started looking around for a dental lab that I could at least kind of get my feet in the door, try to learn a little bit more about it from the real side. And I got offered a job and actually left that program prematurely and I was working in the model room, Utah Valley Dental Lab. I've been at the same lab since I started, so I was fortunate to end up in a lab that would allow me to grow and support me. But I ended up at this, working in the model room. We had classic, which was kind of more the standard toothache dentistry, and we had cosmetic. And the two parts of the model room were sort of split. And I was doing the standard for a while and did a little bit of cosmetic, but then they had a waxing position open up. And so I made the transition from being an artist to being an artist again. And I really, really enjoyed it. I didn't want to, the thing about dental technology, a lot of times you see these videos, especially in school, where there's just a bunch of lab coats and everybody's sitting at a bench and everybody's kind of doing their thing and they do the same thing every day and they don't have a lot of interaction. Cosmetic labs tend to be a little bit different in that I ended up on a team, and this team managed their own account. So the doctors were coming straight to the ceramist, and at that time I was a waxer. So I was fortunate to go straight into the cosmetic waxing. And just the journey is interesting because I was always in the right place at the right time to get the education I needed to back up the artistry, because a lot of people are artists and they can handle the art side of dental technology, but there's a science behind it as well. So I sat in a lot of meetings early on in my career where somebody said, "You're fantastic at what you do, but you have no idea why you're doing it." And that was kind of profound to me. So I started reading, and then just being able to go to courses. We're really big on education here at Utah Valley. So we've traveled around. We've had a lot of technicians come in the lab and teach, as well as dentists. We've got David Hornbrook is our clinical director here, and he's here often. So if there's something that we don't know how to do from the dentist side, sometimes it's just a different point of view, just to understand what we're doing, why it's important. He's there. And we also do a lot of live patient courses with him. So going from an artist to being an artist, I would say that, my biggest fear was doing the same thing every day, but that's not the case in dental technology, especially cosmetic dental technology. You think you've seen it all, and then tomorrow something comes in. It's just crazy. And the challenge of trying to get it from point A to point B sometimes is not something you've seen before. And so it's exciting that way. I think that people who are artistic minded, that maybe don't want to have a typical 8-to-5 job where they're kind of lorded over by somebody else. This is a good career. No one really manages the art side of what we do. We're our own quality control, which is really amazing here. I don't know how it is at other labs because I've never worked at other labs, but we sort of pick the quality standard that works for what we do, and we push. And there's almost 100 people here, and we push each other really hard. It's not a competition. It's not a competition at all. It's a very healthy, I think maybe just inspiring. Like when you see other people's work, you're inspired by it, and
very interesting. And
it really helps all of us grow.
There's a conversation that I was having with Mr. Bart Cawthorn from Florida, and one of the things that he mentioned was that a lot of dental technicians or students of the art, which is dental technology. He says that they know a lot of looking nice and what looks visually pleasing, yet when it comes to functionality and when it comes to occlusion, then that's where the issues definitely begin to show up. And so when you're mentioning that you began to receive feedback as to the explanation behind it, how did you have to reframe your paradigm to absorb this new information, like morphology and why you would have to possibly do certain things to the tooth so it could be a different way? What was your experience in this transition? You said that you were more of an artsy individual, tendencies to just do what you feel, and now you had to add structure and understanding to what you were doing. So how did you marry these two ways of approaching art, which again, dental technology is an art as well, but how did this all happen?
Yeah. That's part of the whole journey, and it's interesting because it doesn't just happen. I don't think it's a change as much as it's adding. It doesn't do any good to make the most beautiful teeth in the mouth if they just don't last. And the materials have changed; they've become stronger. But that doesn't really. It doesn't alleviate the pain of having to figure out how to make it function properly. The patient has to chew properly, and if we do it right, their face will relax and their jaw can relax. And so it's a lot of planning. The dentists we work with are awesomely trained at this, and we just as an artist, you learn that there's certain things you can't do, and there's other things that you need to do, and function definitely drives the ship, and we need to make sure that everything is functioning properly, that they're not going to break off cuss tips, they're not going to break off laterals because they're in the wrong spot. The rise is important. Learning about CO and how to make CO and CR equal, and a lot of the stuff gets into more of the science and biology of the jaw and how the jaw works. And And that's the thing that's great about the industry is the cosmetic industry, dental industry has really pushed function. And along with that, the materials have kind of come up behind it to make these last a very long time. David Hornbrook is good at saying, I'm looking at cases that are 25, 30 years old that he's done. He's been in practice that long. It gives us younger technicians, people. I haven't been in the industry for 25 years, but I want my teeth to be in there for 25 years. And so everything I can learn about the science will make that, more predictable. So there's certainly a lot to know. Like I was saying, it's not I always figured at some point I would know everything about what I was doing, and that's just not the case. And so I think I would tell younger technicians, just get comfortable in the learning process, because you're going to not only learn every day, but you're going to maybe pick up speed and learn more and more as you get more, past the idea that everything has to be pretty. Now you can focus more on, function and different things that,
and what were some of the resources that you began to dabble in and use for you to improve your work through the knowledge, the understanding of what you were doing?
Resources, live patient courses are fantastic for that. Being involved with the Hornbrook courses, Mark Montgomery's a fantastic guy that we do. And they, when you're doing a case live, and a lot of times it was terrifying for, a young starting waxer, because they'd put it on a big screen and they would point out all the things that weren't quite right. Most of them were function. It wasn't aesthetics. It was always, these cuspids aren't touching, they should be touching, or the function isn't quite where it needs to be. So there's a lot of schools of thought. There's a lot of biology, a lot of sciences that have been tested by all kinds of groups. So it's important to learn, so many books, Coyce and Dawson, and there's just tons of resources out there. We have a library here that we can go through. When I started reading it 15 years ago, none of it made any sense. It was diagrams and things, and it didn't make any sense. Now I can go back through all these courses, these books, and actually understand what they're explaining, why they're explaining it the way they are, how to figure out if something isn't mounted right. Because we're not inside the mouth. We've got an articulator, right? And so we can see everything, but if we can't diagnose what the problems are, why is this tooth chipped in the natural teeth? If we can't figure out why that happens, we can't really do our job very well either. So it's, a lot of that learning just comes through, time, being in the field, having great mentors. Having dentist mentors is important, I think, too, not just lab techs that are doing this. And then just don't ever get tired of learning. Don't get bored with it, because that really changes things. I've been around people that really push the quality standard, and I already said we don't really have somebody with a bat standing behind us telling us to get it done better. The lab tech themselves decides at what point is this case done, right? So we've got a checklist of things. It starts off as a checklist on a piece of paper, and then with time, it becomes a checklist that's just in your head. Do I have cuspid rise? Do I have all this function figured out before the case goes out the door? And that quality standard is really important. If you set your standard just at a regular, I'm not going to learn, I'm just here to work 8 to 5, I don't really want to do any extra work, you'll get paid you'll get paid an average wage. Gratefully, and I am grateful for it, when you get on social media, there's not just Utah Valley, there's other labs and other technicians that are really pushing that quality to the point where it's not a competition. It really isn't. It's such if I get on there and there's a case that I can't even imagine how they did, just beautiful, I'm inspired by it, and it gives me a reason to get up the next morning and really learn and hit the floor running. So I think that's important. The other thing I would say about that is, for technicians who are in a lab that doesn't have a quality standard that matches, if I was working at a lab and my quality standard was really high, but the lab standard wasn't, I would move to a lab that matched my quality standard, because otherwise you're kind of stifled there and you can't really progress in this field. So, and gratefully, there are a lot of labs in the country that are doing fantastic work.
And so
that'll
with
take you and teach you. So
again, the quality standards is such an important point here in with so many things that we're hearing from the exterior and everything. But with the fact that technology does not stop its progression, and it's just, I mean, one of the things that I really like that you said, that as a dental technician, you have to get comfortable with learning. I mean, it seems like every month there's something new in dental technology to pick up or to learn, or that's developing, or new developments in something. How has the advancement of technology, obviously you've been in the field for 2 decades and a half here, how has the advancement of technology in the last 10 years changed your perspective of as a dental technician?
It's huge. Just an example of that is we've got 5 or 6 rooms here that are full of mills and printers and scanning stations, design stations. The technology is marching forward, and really, if you go back to the root of it, it's to make the lab more, productive. You want to get more work out the door. The quality is getting much, much better. The scans, the printing, everything. The technology is just moving forward really fast. Some dental technicians have been able to really grab it and run with it. We've got a lot of technicians here that just do everything digital. I do some digital. I think maybe it's just I've got the brakes on because I'm more of an artist and I like to have things in my hand. But if it makes you more productive or as good a technician, I would say this: as long as you're not dropping your quality to produce more, I think it's healthy and will continue to be healthy. And as the technologies grow, I think we're in for a pretty exciting next 10 years of just amazing advancements. The stuff that we see now, the printed models and stuff, are crazy. Like, the quality is amazing. I still wax teeth here and there. I've got a waxer on my team, and he waxes for me. Awesome guy, Austin Applestove. He's an artist too, and I respect what he does. And between the two of us, we really drive the aesthetics. But we know that if we need to, we've got a mill over there that can mill out Emax or different materials, and we can completely bypass the waxing stage nowadays if we want to. That wasn't possible a few years ago. A lot of labs have really dived on it, and they don't wax anymore. And
that's right.
We've talked about doing that as well. It doesn't make sense just yet for us to completely, and I think that goes back to management styles are different. They allow us to do what makes the most sense for our doctors here. So I'm still very comfortable with waxing and pressing and finishing, but the day will probably come where those things will change, and I'll start using more of the digital type stuff. But it is cool. It's fun to see that stuff coming into this industry so strong that people are able to grab little bits and pieces of it. It's cool that the price is coming down. It's obviously going to be the industry future. So,
And as a ceramist, you've been a ceramist for quite a while now. You've seen a lot of things. You've experienced a lot of things. What would you share to an aspiring ceramist, a person that is still studying and they're getting their hands involved, but they need that encouragement from somebody that's already been there, done that experience? Because you're in a sense, you're a self-taught dental professional here.
Yeah.
So what would you say to them?
I would say that you're climbing into a boat where everybody's already paddling in one direction, and some people are going to be really good paddlers and digging in, or they're faster paddlers, and then some are going to be slower. As long as you're paddling the same direction and everybody's trying to make the boat move forward, you've got a place on that boat. Every once in a while you get somebody that's paddling the wrong direction, and you get rid of those folks. But as long as you're willing to jump on and play your part, and learn so that your abilities and your talents can be used to better the lab as a whole, you'll always have a place in this industry. And I would say just continue pushing. Ceramics for me, it was a step beyond waxing. So I started waxing. I learned all the contours. So when I made the transition from waxing to porcelain, I already had the contours figured out. I had to learn how to layer porcelain. But the learning curve, once you get to the point where you know what the shape is pretty quick. There are people who are fantastic layering porcelain. I layer porcelain. I wouldn't consider myself fantastic, and nor am I fast at it. So what I'm looking for is the final product. How do I get something to look like what the doctor is requesting? The contours. I think most people can learn contours. I think artists pick up the shapes and really push for that side of it. The symmetry, there are a lot of niches in cosmetic dentistry too. I'm more symmetry, more, I would consider it more of a cosmetic natural. We're making teeth and we're trying to make them pretty perfect and symmetrical. We do throw little nuances in there to make them look more natural, so they're not too perfect. But it just takes time to get all this. So for me, once I learned what teeth look like, which is important, study teeth. Once I learned what teeth look like, it was just about learning what the materials do. And materials are, like we said, are awesome now. They mimic teeth. They're stronger. We've got a lot more options for shading and colors. When I started off, the shade was warmer than it is now. Now everything's really, really bright. So it's just about learning what those materials do. So I think any ceramist would do good just to continue studying what's there, what's coming out. There are a lot of materials I've never used before. And I think that's true of probably any ceramist, that they get comfortable in one material or another, and they don't really make a change until they have problems with that material. So find something that you're comfortable with and really become I don't want to say master because that sounds arrogant, but you really want to push at it to where you know exactly what you are going to get at the end. Once you bake it two or three times, what are you going to have in your hand?
And so you mentioned the continued education that you're definitely experiencing throughout the years, even to this day. Which you also credit to, unfortunately, not being out in Chicago this year, which we're bummed about.
I wish I was going to be.
Actually, we're recording this a couple days before Lab Day, so by the time it's aired, it's going to be after Lab Day. But definitely. Now, I do understand that there are certain dental technicians that either they are a one-man lab and they don't have the, let's call it, not opportunity, let's not call it the luxury, but they don't have the, let's call it a safety net of a team that can cover, their work for 3 or 4 days while they travel. They limit their traveling and they're not exposed to, let's call it the same dynamic that's online. It's very different than when we're all together and when all the dental technicians are together and there are certain conversations that are had live and there's certain questions. So what would you say to somebody that is, that is limiting their traveling because of, their lab work? What would you say to them?
I think that the world has gotten a lot smaller with social media. There are a lot of resources. The science is easy to find. You can jump on, Google, and you can find just about any resource for function. If a doctor calls and says that they're interested in the, more of a Pete Dawson type style, you can find resources that tell you what that, that technology is or what those schools of thoughts are. But social media for me has turned into a resource. When I got into it, I already had experience with social media before with another company that I do other things, and I thought, if I'm going to share what I do, I need to see what other people are doing. And at first, it's kind of scary because you don't know where you're going to fit into that world. But I've never been trolled. I've never had anybody negatively comment about anything. It's kind of crazy. I've been on social, Instagram specifically pushing pushing myself to try to become better. And, when I started, I would look at, and I still do it, but I would look at people and think, how do you do that? And just, a lot of it's just mastery of the art. A lot of it's mastery of using a camera. We have a photographer here, and she's awesome. Most of the photos that I post are all just with my cell phone, but gratefully people are just posting stuff, whether it's all on 4, which is, for me, it's a new technology. A lot of people have been doing it for a while, but we do it here at the lab. We've got a team that does that. If I want to see how somebody does an all on 4 case, I can get on Instagram and I can step by step. And if I have questions, I've never had a person that refused to answer a question. I'm constantly messaging people, and I'm constantly responding to messages. If I have a question about materials, I ask. If I have a question about the science behind it, I ask. If it's something that they're doing that I've never seen before, I ask. And everybody's so cool about responding and answering those questions. So I would say, do what you do the best you can. And when you have something that's stopping you from moving forward, get help. Because all of us are, we're on the same journey, I guess. We're going the same direction. So, if I have to reach my hand up to get help, I do it. And I'm so grateful for the people who have been so cool about sharing what they know with me. It happens every day. It's not just Phil shows up to work and puts his headphones on for 8 hours a day, and the week goes by and Phil's done, and Phil goes home. I've got people who are, needing me for help here, and I'm working with my waxer so he can become a ceramist, and likewise, I'm always asking for help from other people. So I think social media has been a big tool for me. I think that anybody can throw something on there. I'd be sad to see a negative comment about anybody's work, just because we've all been there. If I went back 15, 16 years ago, or if I went back to yesterday, sometimes I always wish that I knew today, yesterday what I knew today. So I think people are really cool on there, and I would say if anybody ever has any questions of me, ask. I'm happy to share anything that I know. I don't know everything, but I'm happy to try to help.
Absolutely. And your tag on Instagram is Phil, Nebec.
Eker.
Eker, no C. Gotcha. Yeah. And we're gonna for all our listeners, we're gonna have all the information in the description, and for those that are watching us on YouTube, all the information is going to be in the links below. And so you're definitely big on sharing the things that you have learned, the things that have been or proven themselves to be successful pathways into the understanding of the dental technology today, let's call it that, and how it's relevant to the patient and ultimately changing the patient's life. So are you working on putting courses together? Are you working on shooting something? What are you working on now to make it a lot more accessible for people on the web?
My focus for the longest time has been photography, trying to figure out how to capture what I'm actually doing. More recently, I've seen a lot of questions about procedures. So we're going to do videos work better for procedures, especially with stacking porcelain, or cut back some of the more detailed stuff. So rather than taking 100 photos, we're going to start doing more photos or more videos. We're talking about we're going to try to do at least one waxing course here at Utah Valley Dental Lab this year. We're going to try to do at least one ceramic course here at Utah Valley Dental Lab this year, on top of all of our other live patient courses. It's going to be a busy year for us. I would say just kind of watch social media. Utah Valley Dental Lab, we post our courses on that webpage. So we're pretty accessible. So any questions, feel free to ask.
So that's where we would be following you on Instagram, obviously, and then at Utah Valley Dental Laboratories as well. Uh-huh. And all these videos that you're talking about, the pictures are going to be listed on there as well, or only there?
No, we're actually we're going to work on how to link everything, but for now they'll probably be more focused on Instagram, and then with time we'll get more and more on the website. we have some on there now, more from the clinician side. But with time, I'm sure we'll kind of expand it and build libraries up. If you jump on there now, a lot of the resources are for dentists if they need to know how to bond something in or use specific materials. We've got resources for that. So Instagram, I guess, is still more on the artist side for me. Just, I like to share and I like to see what other people are sharing. So as I get better, I guess, at my processes, I'll start posting more and more videos.
That's exciting. We definitely hope you keep us in the loop when you're posting all these videos. I'm sure our listeners are looking forward to following all these videos and learning from these videos, learning from you, and hopefully we can see you in Chicago 2021.
I'd love to. It'd be fun to get back there. It's just, we're just having a busy year. So, we'll stay put this year and then hopefully next year be there.
Absolutely. Phil, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. How exciting having you share all this information. We're very excited to follow those new projects that you have. And we also look forward to meeting you in person very, very soon.
Absolutely. And likewise, thank you for having me on.
Pleasure having you, ladies and gentlemen. Till next time.